let's take a trip to the cemetery and stand before the grave, because this is where you will find the demon Bifrons. Bifrons is a demon of thresholds. He stands in between worlds, planes, dimensions, mental states. He's a demon who rearranges bones, moves corpses, and guards hidden knowledge. Now, what if this grave is not just a place of rest for a deceased human, a place to put a corpse? What if it's actually a library? And I'm not speaking metaphorically or symbolically, but with Bifrons, I'm speaking literally. Like the grave is holding on to that energy, all of the metaphysical energy that was built, developed, and structured during the lifetime of the deceased who is in the grave. So instead of just thinking of this as a place for dead bodies, it becomes a library of structured, archived energy. All of that structured energy, metaphysical energy, psychic thought energy in the form of memories, thoughts, desires. And so guarding and looking over and maintaining this library is Bifrons, who not only moves bones and rearranges the dead, but also teaches the sciences. And very interestingly, in the grimoires, Bifrons is described as being two-faced. So we're going to talk about just what that means once we lift the veil. In texts like the Lesser Key of Solomon, the Pseudomonarchia Daemonum, and the Dictionary Infernal, Bifrons is described as an earl or count of hell. He appears at first as something monstrous, grotesque, and distorted, but then he changes and he assumes a human form when you work with him correctly. So already this is telling us something critical, and it's coming back to that description of him being two-faced, that the demon Bifrons is not a fixed entity, that he is dynamic and changing and transforming. He is transitional. He exists between states. As I said, he stands at the threshold, always at that doorway, with one foot in one world and another foot in the next. So looking at Bifrons through the lens of infernal metaphysics, Bifrons is a demon who is two-faced. His name means two-faced. And this is a concept that's deeply tied to the Roman god Janus, who is a deity of doorways, thresholds, beginnings, and endings. But here's where it gets interesting. In modern physics, in quantum mechanics, there is the concept of something called superposition, where something can exist in more than one state at once. Now, to our human minds, this seems illogical, but in quantum mechanics, this is what they believe now. So a lot of people would know this through the double slit experiment, where they are observing electrons being shot through two slits. They pass through two slits and they are shot against a wall. And the electrons behave either as a wave or a particle, depending on whether or not they're observed and when they are observed. And it seems to be that they're not one or the other, but that they are both through this, through superposition. They are in two states at once. Getting into infernal metaphysics, this is understanding the ability to be alive and dead at the same time, or the ability to have knowledge of or exist or move through the past and future simultaneously. So Bifrons is a demon who is analogous to this principle of superposition. Bifrons is life and death, form and structure and dissolution, decay as well as construction, development, and knowledge, as well as being in the past and future and having a grasp of this idea of spherical time. So when we're coming to the cemetery, examining the grave through the eyes of the demon Bifrons, we can see that, yes, the grave is an ending, but through superposition, it is also something that continues. It is a compression of the algorithm. So with the human life, you have a human being who goes through life through many, many years, decades, who is continually developing their own library, you could think of it, their own mental library. And they're using their thoughts and perceptions and experiences and memories and desires and all of these things that are constructing their mental world. But according to Bifrons, upon the moment of physical death, this library does not simply dissipate into the ether, but it continues on. It is stored in a database, and the grave, at least for Bifrons, acts as that database, and that is why Bifrons watches over it and manipulates it, and he is like the librarian here. So when Bifrons is rearranging bones or moving bodies from one grave to another, he is doing work in the library. He is re-indexing the archive and reorganizing the hidden database of the cosmic matrix or the mental matrix. Now, why is it that Bifrons, this sometimes grotesque, monstrous being who is around graves in the cemetery, why is it that he is teaching science? Why does a grave demon teach astrology and geometry and the natural sciences? Well, the reason is that these are not random disciplines. They're languages of structure. And Bifrons is all about structure, right? A library is structured knowledge. Astrology is used to map cycles of time. As far as understanding the spatial dimensions, we have geometry to map that. The natural sciences help to map the material transformation of the world and its unfoldment. And then you have Bifrons at that threshold, the architect of transition. So Bifrons is teaching you how things change form without losing essence. So the essence is one of the deepest levels of reality. We all have an essence. Everything has an essence. And according to metaphysics, this is eternal and it is infinite, and it passes through the thresholds, even past death and into new life. So when we get into alchemy, which is definitely something that the demon Bifrons works with and teaches, right? This is not about destruction and simple death, right? Within alchemy, when we talk about death, we're talking about transmutation. And the same with the Major Arcana Tarot card, the Death card. This is not a card of just endings and destruction and finality. It is a card of transition. So Bifrons is very strongly connected with the Death card. First of all, because that's his realm, death and the graves and graveyards. But also because he is a demon of thresholds and transitions. Okay, but how about lighting the candles over the graves? This seems, ritualistic? What is the purpose of this? Well, the reason he lights candles over the graves is symbolic of that light representing awareness. So he is marking points of consciousness as he is mapping out this library, these energy structures. And he's doing this intentionally. So, alchemy, Negredo, blackening stage, breaking down, decomposition, destruction, death. And then the albedo, right? So we are rebuilding. And this is why we see the two faces of Bifrons. Why he first appears monstrous. This is chaos and death and decay and unprocessed reality. This is his raw form. But then he takes on the human form, right? This is where he is beginning to structure things. So this is symbolizing structured perception and how the mind, our minds organize chaos into structure and meaning and knowledge, beneficial knowledge. So Bifrons is teaching us and showing us that reality is not actually changing. It is just our perception that changes. Some traditions say that Bifrons is opposed by the archangel Ariel. And this would make sense because Ariel is an angel who is stabilizing, while Bifrons is the demon who is transforming. So Ariel is trying to preserve that structure while Bifrons is rearranging it. And you need Bifrons just like you need alchemy, because without restructuring, this would mean also without deconstruction and death and things like this, you would never have any development or improvement or progress. So we have an image of Bifrons in the Dictionary Infernal, which may draw from the work of Francisco Goya, particularly his Los Capicos. Goya's grotesque figures were likely meant to be reflections of society's hidden face. So these were not just monsters. And this brings us back to Bifrons and his two faces, which are not just metaphysical, they are psychological as well, because we all have the two selves, the one that we show the external world around us, that we show others, and the one that is deep inside of us, that is our true self. And that also includes our shadow self and the things that we repress and suppress, and our fears and urges and unwanted desires, right? And so we're always battling with these two selves. It's almost like with the id, which is our deeper primal self, and the superego, which what we want to show the others. And Bifrons is like the ego standing in the middle, trying to balance both of these, with one foot in the subconscious mind and the other foot in the conscious waking mind. So Bifrons is governing this boundary between them, between all realms, between not just life and death, the past and the future, but between the conscious and subconscious mind, or if we want to say unconscious mind, the waking mind, the shadow. As above, so below, Bifrons is at the threshold of all of these realms. So you have to ask yourself, is Bifrons just moving the dead for his own enjoyment and sick pleasure, or twisted pleasure, I should say? Or is he trying to teach us something about what death actually is? Because again, from the perspective of infernal metaphysics, the infernal metaphysics of Pluto Sophia, death is not an end. It is a transition. It's bringing in a new order. Destroy the old order and then build the new order. It's a reclassification of existence, a shifting in state, a changing of the indexing. And Bifrons there is the librarian, the one who is doing the re-indexing and the archiving and managing the whole library, the whole system. So somewhere between your past and your future, between what you were and what you are becoming, there is a threshold. There is a doorway that you are standing in right now, just like Bifrons. It is a moment of transformation. And so in that sense, you too, through working with Bifrons, invoking him, communicating with him, he in a way is functioning as a mirror, trying to teach you that you are always at a threshold, and that threshold is where the things, big things, have the potential to really happen. So if you look closely at Bifrons, you may realize that you too have two faces, and both of them are watching.